first thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as provided by Christie?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right, we're on number 4. We're on programs and facility updates and discussions. So that is you, Christie.
Okay, so, you guys probably saw it advertised. I don't know how much you knew about it or know about it because we didn't talk about it that much. But we did work in cooperation with a private group tennis block to do pickleball lessons for the fall. Those went really well. That wrapped up. We received our revenue share on that, and we're working currently for the winter set of lessons. They seem to be very happy with the situation and are trying to go ahead and advertise for the next set. So I think it's working out that they see it as beneficial as well. We will start a new yoga class tomorrow that we've advertised. Many of you are in her class, so you know this, but Alice, our instructor, is going to do a yoga sculpt class prior to the other class. It's going to include some hand weights, and it's a little more intense than regular yoga, as I understand it. As you probably saw from the BOC meeting, if you had a chance to look at that, both the consultant for the Pier and Block Q presented preliminary renditions of their plans for those. If you haven't seen those yet, actually one's still up from the meeting here, but you could go online to the board's agenda packet and pull those up to look at them. The Board of Commissioners provided feedback, and both the consultants should be bringing additional plans forward to the board. It was in this year's budget, you guys probably remember, to do a engineer analysis of 796 based off the ideas that this board put forward and some of the ideas that have been mentioned for that facility for a community space to use. The architect has prepared some initial preliminary drawings, and currently, unless something happens, is scheduled to present at the January meeting. So any of you that think you may be in town and can attend, you may want to attend that meeting. I think you'll find it beneficial since you've been through the process on the facility.
Christie, will you communicate that to the entire board just because we've got 3 absent? And
Yes.
I know that I've got a conflict. The next BOC meeting, of course, is at 5 o'clock on January 17th.
Christie, did the commissioners know that that was being done?
Yeah, well, they know it was in the budget, and they know that there was a presentation by a concerned citizen about the property at a previous board meeting. I think it would have been November's board meeting. And they were told at that time that we were underway with talking with the architect.
Okay.
But the proposal at the last BOC meeting was to paint and refresh and possibly rent.
Totally
This
different
summer.
than this,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
This doesn't involve these plans.
okay, because when I read the BOC minutes, it's like they didn't even remember John's
They
presentation.
didn't.
They had no idea, and that just seemed to me that this board did a lot of work, John did a lot of work, particularly, I mean, the whole board did, but particularly John, and then they actually didn't even remember that anything, to me, the comments were like nothing had come before them. So I just needed to.
Yeah, and I don't know that it would be inappropriate, and Christie, you tell me if it would be, to express concerns to our commissioners, or, individually, or however you would want to approach them. That I don't know that I know that they're moving forward without any input from this board. However, we spent a lot of time doing a master plan, which that was on the eve of the purchase of the pier, but the pier is referenced in the master plan, as well as what we did with 796 as a board.
You could feel free as an independent board member to express what you wanted to the commissioners in an email. But that was That was explicitly asked by the town manager when we started the process for both the pier and Block Q, and they wanted it to go directly to them. So if you remember anything differently than that, just chime in.
Well, and I did present the question to one commissioner, and they said, oh, you're gonna be brought on board later. And I just felt like as a board, we did a lot of work up front, and I don't even know if they realize, some of the newer ones, if they're familiar with the master plan, because we did have several new commissioners. So, David, you,
I think we've got 3 since we did the plan.
so I don't know if they even realize that it's referenced in there, because
I don't know if I can help you any more than what I said today.
yeah, I know your hands are tied, but at the same time, can someone from the town at least let the new board commissioners know that those things have been addressed in the plan, master plan, as well as the presentation that we as a board worked together? And, you know, I didn't get to go, but even going and looking at the facilities at Ocean Isle, just to bring them abreast of things, because I know they're probably overwhelmed with a lot of new stuff anyhow.
What I can do is send an email to David for him to share with any new board members that might not know, for him to forward that you guys wanted to pass along. So the architect will be presenting, and then the plans, if you can't be here, should go out as in the agenda packet. So you should at least be able to see them if you can't be here in attendance that night. And then commenting on previous programs last month, the tree lighting was a great success. That was held the evening after we finished this meeting. Thank you all for everybody that helped. And we had an elf tryouts program, which was a fun half-day program the week before Christmas. So that's what I have for programs and facilities. You guys have any questions or?
I guess you're working on concerts and.
I am, gonna cover something about concerts under the budget section,
Okay.
but I will let you know that most of them are booked. I think that I only have 1 or 2 spots that I'm still working for, and that doesn't indicate for anybody listening that we have new spots available. Typically how it works is if you were here and things went well, we ask you back. So it may just be that I'm still fitting in people to slots and haven't called a regular back yet.
Okay. Marta, does anyone have any questions or anything else to discuss under programs and facilities update? If not, then.
I'd like to say something about the program, the ELF tryout program. One, it was disappointing that I didn't see any of y'all signed up to try out for the ELF squad, but it was, I was really impressed with that. It was, as all of Christie's programs are, they're very well thought out and planned, but I don't know why that one in particular seemed to be, not only was it well thought out, well planned, it had about 6 to 8 kids, but it was so high touch with the role models here on the staff. The police chief attended. Of course, we had Santa Claus, Christy and Heather were all here. So it was a small group that were trying out for the team, but with the activities and the oversight that was provided to them. I don't know, something about it. I just thought it was a great program.
Thank you, Kristen, for your efforts in that. All right, if there's nothing else under programs and facilities, then master plan, RFQ Sailfish Park update, Christie.
Yes, the town manager and I addressed the changes that you guys made, last time to extend that over 2 budget years as the plan. The RFQ went out on, 12/13 with responses due back to the clerk by January 17th. So it's almost time. So far, there have been questions from 2 firms. You guys don't have to feel like you have to write these down because they're available for viewing on our website. What we told everybody in the RFQ is that we would place any questions with their answers on the site so that everybody could see it as an addendum. So, the questions we had so far is, what is the planned time frame for the master planning exercise? That the guess was, since we received a part of grant this year, we wouldn't be applying again until 2024 at the earliest. And has a budget or funds been allocated for master planning or estimated amount willing to spend for the consultant? This was the second inquiry from the second firm, starting with the budget. Does the 30-page limit include cover page, table of contents, page dividers, and are you looking for an organizational chart of the entire firm or a chart of the project team? So we've answered all of those questions, and the answers are on the front page of our website. And there's only a few days left for questions. So that period actually ends before they're due back.
So, Peggy, I guess you've been coming on the board since, so do you need to, explain to her about the 2-year, putting the expense over 2-year budget, or?
She was here last
was
month,
she-
so,
Okay.
so she got that.
She got that, okay. All right, then, anything else on Sailfish? No questions, then we'll talk about budget discussion, have our budget discussions and planning.
So because I realized that there were a couple new board members, since I asked you guys to make sure to bring your plans, what I did was copy the sheets out of the plan that had to do with the budget discussions and fiscal year 23-24. What the consultants recommended would be down that column. It's a front and back page that's before you. The repaved parking area, and just so you know, last year this had to go into the capital improvement plan for this to be shown for what was expected this year. We did not include this $150,000 repaved parking area at Jordan Boulevard because that's not something that's currently planned and actually not a part of this. If we're doing anything in the boulevard, it would likely be the Block Q area. So there's nothing up towards the pavilion that's planned with that or has been referenced. So that wasn't included in the capital improvement plan. The restroom facility that was in this year's budget is now a part of the plan for Block Q. So that would not likely, unless something changes, be accomplished this budget year. So I foresee that being in Block Q next year. The revolving art sculpture in Pocket Park, I really think that that's something that we should coordinate with Brunswick Arts Council about. It looks to me that an amount like $1,500 was probably for an area prep and maybe some coordination with the sculptures that come in, but I think that we can change that number or get that number down by coordinating with the Brunswick Arts Council to see what we can do as a partnership. With other restroom facilities being addressed, we may need to think about these waterless restrooms that were listed at McRae and Ocean Boulevard. So I've just got a question mark beside that for your discussions at this point. 796 had $150,000 as a renovation scheduled for next year. And as I mentioned, the architect will be presenting some plans. The Sailfish Park has 2 things that were listed that were not going to get accomplished for this year. So everything that was in the 22-23 column we didn't end up putting that in. We only were accounting for the kayak launch. And if you guys remember, we decided that wasn't gonna be able to happen because the topography has changed there. So the question is about anything for Sailfish Park post the master plan completion, which we would think would be the October timeframe. So October to July, anything that you think might be able to be accomplished there, but we don't have the plan yet. So I'm thinking that will slide right as well. And the only other thing that I saw really listed was the Holden Beach Fit Trail on the first page. It listed, I'm sorry, not Fit Trail, but bike route. It listed accessibility and wayfinding, but I don't know that we would do anything with that bike route and wayfinding until we did bike lanes. So when we talked about these budget items last year, you guys had asked for like a breakout of what's been accomplished, what's in progress. So this budget year, in progress, we still need to get the seating for the basketball court that was in the 21-22 that slid right from last year. Those chairs I've not ordered yet. Part of that reason is the fence was completed, but we also had unplanned issues in the bathroom. We had to replace HVAC system that we didn't plan on or component, and we had to do 2 commercial upgrades of toilet facilities. So I'm really waiting more towards we get into the spring to see how that budget line's going before chairs are ordered. We also have to replace a piece of playground equipment if we cannot get the parts for it. After the December, Peggy reported that she had gotten a call from some visitors about the shark that's over there. I've inquired with a company about a replacement piece for it, but have not been successful. So if we can't get replacement pieces, we're gonna have to replace the equipment. It's been vandalized. We talked about the new restroom underneath the bridge not being accomplished yet. As far as bands and how that affects budgeting, the bands are requesting more money because of inflation, gas, driving times. So that's something that I'm gonna have to keep into consideration when I'm looking at the budget. We talked about the kayak launch at Sailfish Park. And then finally, access and recreation is a line that really has to do with your budgeting process. We typically do 1 rebuild and 1 repair of accesses, and that occurs in winter and spring. So it wouldn't be here for us to do that yet. The Public Works Director and the building inspector go around and decide which one of those we need to work on next. We know that one of those will be the pier access, the new one, because we did get grant funds to do that. So then it would be looking at what else was available and needed to be next on the list. So basically that's the rundown of where I see where we are, what we've accomplished, and what has to be pushed. And that was just for your consideration as you guys prepare to make your recommendations that go to the staff level. I present those in the budget that I send to David, and then there can be things that are cut at the staff level before we get to the commissioners. I know that was a lot to consume. So if anybody has any questions, we can go back through some stuff.
Did, at the Halsted Park, did both of those items get completed?
We did some repair of existing pier and fishing platform. We did not do the fish cleaning station yet, which was $7,500 in the first year.
Right.
I'm not sure how well that was received by the community there, so I don't know if we will.
Well, I agree.
So we've moved the waterless, and you may have addressed this and I didn't capture it, but anyhow, the waterless restroom facilities at Selfish. That, of course, has not happened, but is that something that do we need to have the whole master plan for Selfish before we do anything on that? Okay.
Because otherwise, it's like the other components that we would just be piecing things together,
Mhm.
and we need to think about,
Plan.
just because they recommended waterless doesn't mean when the site-specific plan comes in that they won't recommend a full restroom there. Just because these consultants, so we need to see what the site-specific master plan says.
So there's, I mean, just because of where we are with lots of things, there's not a lot of wiggle room, I mean, or things to do. I'm just trying to look and see.
Kind of looks like we need a big chunk of money to move forward with anything.
Well, yeah, everything is expensive. We can't do anything with 796 because we don't know what to do yet.
I think you're good with leaving that placeholder in there for the budget, though. I think you're good with putting that forward in the budget unless you guys, hear the plan and decide that you want to recommend more or less. I don't know what it's gonna be, have no idea. But
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it doesn't,
So just leave it in there for next year, because we've got 150,000
right.
there anyhow. So Christie, if they refresh the facility with paint and whatever to rent it, the revenue that it generates from rental, does that go back into the general pot? Or does that could that possibly go, I know to offset any refresh, paint and stuff, but does any of that go back into this line item at all?
I will answer that to what I think the answer is, and then I'm gonna let David correct me if I'm wrong. So when that building was bought, and we had this discussion a long time ago, so I don't expect you to remember it, this is just a recap. When the building was purchased, it was purchased with the water fund, and therefore the rent would go back to the water fund until B Part buys that facility if they so choose to turn it into a recreational facility.
Okay. That's why that historical perspective is
Yeah.
so important.
So the follow-on answer to that is, with the things the board has asked to come back through the town manager about any updates before the plan is put forward, I don't know where they plan to source that from, but any rental income would have to go back to water unless B Part buys it.
So, moving forward, it looks like the Board of Commissioners has decided on to move forward, or at least have a plan for Block Q, and if that's the case, I saw on there's a mini dog park, which I know it's nothing in comparison to what a lot of people would love to have, but we know about the land issue there, but also, they're talking about the restroom facilities there's on that plan, if they were to go with the plan that I saw at the meeting. So does that mean is that gonna be something that's gonna come out of Parks and Rec budget? I mean, I don't really understand the pots of money here.
Currently, I would say that based on the past experience of where funds have been expended for that it likely would. So
It was purchased with B Part funds.
And I
So-
think that they would keep the restroom facility even though it's been pushed in B Part, because we have as many visitors or more that use our restroom facilities than we do full-time homeowners.
But let's elaborate on that a little bit. The current restroom facility is paid for out of the B Part funds operationally.
Right.
So since that whole site was procured using occupancy taxes, it would seem logical. I don't know why it would be hosted anywhere else. Is that an answer
Yeah,
your question?
I'm
But I will make a comment here, and it just dawns on me that in terms of improvement, I have not heard any inference for 796 to be anything else other than a recreation facility. So in terms of costing things out, you probably want to put an appropriation in the B part budget to procure that facility from the water fund. That makes sense, because if it's a water capital asset now,
Right.
but once the use changes, it should be housed in the B part fund, because it'll be owned and operated, if you will, by Fund 50. It's what I'm thinking, but
I don't remember how much that was.
yeah, it's $343,000, I believe,
Okay.
plus or minus.
And the other thing to keep in mind, and I'm not trying to continue to harp on that, but just when you're looking at that grand total figure for the end of this as we're talking through it, just remember that the bathroom at Jordan Boulevard was not part of this plan, but it was gonna be accomplished this year, so that figure, whatever it comes in at, will also be a part of that column, because we'll be including that for next year. Does everybody, Candace, I see your head going up and down, I see a few heads going up and down, but that was it, for this year, it was proposed to start over with it at a $250,000 figure, but I don't know what it'll come in at with the current plan.
So, I mean, so what I'm hearing is there are a lot of numbers we don't know yet. So while we can talk about it, that needs to go in the budget, whatever the number's going to be from the consultant.
So as a board, do we as a consensus, at least today, need to agree what we would like to see put in the budget forthcoming, and if we wanted, and, I'm just glancing, if we want to keep 796 in there as a board, we could have a motion to do so, but we don't really know if that'll happen, if it needs to be moved right for even an additional year. Or do you just want individual input, or as a board, do we want to suggest? I mean, we don't want to get too stretched out with a little here and a little there, and so much has been canceled, or we've told we can't do because of Selfish and others. And I think Selfish was a priority when we were sitting at this point last year, but that's not happened because other things have taken priority.
So do we need to put in there the purchase of 796?
Yes,
So that, we need to put 300 and whatever, 41 or whatever, so that
Next.
needs to be in for next year, as well as the upgrade? Is it
Yes.
150? Okay, so if
So
we
we
got,
need to have a motion that we want to, as a board, do that, Christie? Is that what we need to do?
let's talk about it, and then if you guys reach a consensus with one motion at the end, I'll keep track of what you're talking
Okay,
about
okay.
now. And then you can revisit it, because this is new discussion today and you're missing some members. But the most that you can agree on today helps start the budget process as far as putting numbers in, so.
so we've got to put money in for Jordan for the restroom.
Q Block?
I would just say that you move Jordan right with the number that you worked with in this year's budget, and that we adjust it as it
Okay,
comes in from the
so-
consultants. That was 250,000.
And then you'll adjust as, if it comes in, it
Right.
probably will come in higher. We can't do anything with Selfish. There's nothing with Halsted we want to recommend.
Well, with Selfish, you're gonna have to appropriate some of the 30,000 that you had for your consultant this year and the next year, so.
Okay,
Yeah, we need to do that.
so how are you gonna split that?
Well, I think we agreed that we thought the majority of the work would happen kinda in that cluster.
Mhm.
I bet the best guess that we have is half.
Okay, so $15,000 for Sailfish. to
Master
finish-
plan.
Finish that up. And then we're looking for the following year to do anything significant there. Halsted, we're not gonna probably do anything with. Should we do some money for the pocket park, although you said you could do it for less than 1,500, but
This is where you guys look at what's listed and decide if you think that based on what you have to do, if that's something that is pressing, can wait, or can push, and where you're pushing it to, so that I know for the capital improvement plan. How about for that item, I come back with you with what the Arts Council said that they can do, and I'll
Okay.
communicate with them before then.
Okay. I guess the fitness trail, I don't hear any big. Are the Boy Scouts still involved with that? Or who
They did
knows?
the painting of the staining of the, within the last 6 months. I can't remember exactly what month, and the person that did that will get their recognition from the town, likely at the February meeting, because we have to wait for them to get their Eagle Scout badges before we do that. So we're gonna recognize 2 at one time. That and the libraries across the street at Bridgeview.
We can't do the bike route pay, I mean, that's on hold. So I guess that could move over a year, right? The 75,000,
I think so, unless I hear something different.
yeah. Scott's Bonnet's not even on the table.
Scotch Bonnet's not on the table.
Right.
So then we're back to it looks like that finishes out the column. It looks like we're back
Right.
to waterless restrooms at the east end. And whether you guys want to have that looked at for the placeholders that's in here, or whether you think some of the other things have taken a priority.
Does anybody have any real feelings on that?
What'd you say the restrooms are gonna be down on the east end, where we gonna put them?
The one that's scheduled for Block Q is right here at Jordan.
No, I mean,
Oh, in the plan, they had 2 waterless restrooms, one at the McCray Street parking area, beach access, and one at Ocean Boulevard East right away. And both of those would depend on, if that flies
we had
with.
two down
Okay,
there.
I'm not seeing that on here, maybe I'm not.
It's, if you go down to beach water access site, it says, the third thing down says add waterless restroom to beach access at McCray Street parking area, add waterless restroom to beach access at end at Ocean Boulevard, and both of those have $100,000 beside them.
Oh, okay, this budget I've got doesn't have that.
I'm sorry, it must have cut it off when I
Yeah,
ran
okay, because
calls.
I'm sitting here going, I'm getting slower.
I'm sorry, it must have cut it off. That's the actual plan, you can pass it
Here.
down.
Okay. All right, it did, okay,
Mine got cut off too.
okay, that's, okay. Let me just, okay, 1,000, yeah,
Well,
Are we opening a can of worms if we're gonna do waterless restrooms? Do we need to look at an island-wide project versus, and I'm just saying, I think if we decide we're gonna start with waterless bathrooms on the east end, we're gonna get some flack about not putting them on the
Put 'em
west end.
You're right.
And we don't need any flack. We just need to do what's best. I mean, if we could do one on, rather than 2 on the east end, if we wanted to budget for some for next year, my thinking would be 1 on the east end and 1 on the west end, and then revisit it another year, because they're, what, $100,000 is what you're saying?
that's what they estimated, the company.
I mean, that's a lot of money, but I don't see us being able to do a couple on the east end and 2 or 3 on the west end at one time. I mean, you could be talking $500,000 for bathrooms.
well, I think they had in the plan originally 1 for sailfish, we just
Right.
can't put it in yet,
Right.
so.
You probably also got to remember, you got to remember that putting one on the east end was prior to the acquisition of the pier. and also the pending plans for 796, both of which are contemplating having restroom facilities in them. I don't know what where you're talking about on the west end, but at least those two areas there do, in the conceptual plans that I've seen, have public restrooms in them.
Block Q, pier.
Yeah, Block Q too.
And
Yeah.
796 of that restaurant.
Yeah.
If it develops. And then depending on what Sailfish does,
Was that what you meant by west end, the sailfish, that you?
any of that stuff.
Okay.
So,
I have a question, it's probably a dumb question, but like down if you put the two things down on the east end, does the town have the property, the space?
Right away.
I was gonna say, just because they put it in the plan, it would still have to go through the scrutiny of the planning department and seeing if they can go there
Yeah.
and.
I mean, I was just wondering if the town actually owned the site to put it on.
I can't tell you specifically without a property map to correspond with
Okay,
that.
okay,
We own the right of way for McCray Street.
okay.
So with all that discussion, is there anyone that feels like we need to move forward with waterless toilets, bathrooms, facilities, restrooms at this point in time? Sounds like there's a lot of questions about where they're gonna be facilities, so we'd be kind of throwing at a target in the dark, maybe, for next year.
well, if we could do one down there, I mean, I don't know we don't know where we would put it,
Yeah.
but it may not be bad to put one on the east end. It sounds like more west, the potential of getting some restrooms down there in the facilities like 796, the pier, and some of that. So other than the Jordan, the Q lot, there are no restrooms down further other than some porta potties, right? So,
Do you guys wanna entertain one somewhere at the east end that we can look at placement?
yeah, I think that would
I
be
think
better
so.
than us trying to figure out which one to do. 'Cause
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
That's a whole lot of zeros.
right, that is, I mean,
And I would think with everything that's being proposed, this is gonna be a tight budget year for anything we as the board would like to see happen.
Well, it's important though for us to work from a plan and
Right.
stick to a plan and go from there, so.
Yep.
So, as a recap, I have 796 buy at the amount that we bought it, the refurbish at the amount that's in there, which was the 150,000, or whatever comes in on the plan. The Jordan Boulevard, 250,000 for bathrooms, or whatever comes in with that plan. Selfish master plan, budgeting 15,000 as best guess of what would be left over, but we should know more after that RFQ comes back in. And talk to the Arts Council about Pocket Park sculpture and $100,000 for one waterless restroom at the east end.
do we need a motion for that?
Go ahead.
I move that we approve the budget items that Christie just reviewed for the, 23-24 budget year.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a,
I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Opposed? None? So moved. Unanimous with the ones that are here.
When does this budget go in, Christie?
I'd like to offer up the pending budget schedule that the Board of Commissioners will be reviewing for approval at their regular board meeting this month. There's going to be a goals workshop late February, and then 3 working sessions with the board. Of course, the budget message has to be delivered by May 31st, and I think I got it penciled in for Friday, May 26th. But the commissioners are adding also to be held concurrently on a quarterly basis an update on the capital plan or their big ticket items. So there's 2, I think, of those capital program updates are going to coincide with the budget workshops. I hadn't fully fleshed out the dates of the 3 budget workshops, but from the staff's perspective, we're going to be developing worksheets here before the end of the month to start that moving forward. So your timing is fortuitous on.
Any other questions or discussion on anything with the budget planning? Okay. We don't have anyone from the, we do have it. We have one member from the public. Do we have any questions from the public?
He's not paying attention.
Mr. Vick,
Do you have any?
you're our public. Do you have any comments or questions from the public? Okay. All right, just to review real quickly, we are going to look at a meeting date for February independently. We're going to let Christy know, and she's going to reach out to those board members that were unable to attend, correct, Christy?
We are, if the board still feels like you need to meet. You gave me all I need today to move forward. So I have the conflict for the February meeting, so for a conference. So if you guys feel like you need to meet, you can have a consensus to send me calendar calls and I'll get something together.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion that we do not meet in February.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. The other item is Christie is highly encouraging or recommending anyone that can be at the 17th, January 17th BOC meeting. It's at 5 o'clock because the engineers' findings for 796 will be shared at that meeting, and that'll be the first time we'll be able to see that as well, correct, Christie?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So anything else from anyone? If not, I will adjourn. Oh, I made a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The meeting's adjourned.